Hello, friend. I wanted to make a short video. I've been posting also in the community. So if you go to my channel and you click on community, you'll see posts that I make there. I tend to make those for my writing, or if I'm sharing a video that I have been listening to and I have found is very helpful. So I just wanted to let you know about that. In case you don't see it come up randomly, you can go to my channel and click on community and find a lot of posts there that I've made that you might enjoy. As you know, I have a Reddit page or a subreddit that I also write on, and you can find that under Art of Beingness as well. Today, I want to talk about how important there are 2 steps that I have taken that are absolutely helping me in every way. And the first step, I was listening to Louise Hayes, and I felt really inspired by what she has said. And one of the most important things that she talks about is loving yourself. And that in all her time working with people, the most important thing that a person can do if they want to better their lives or change their lives is to love oneself unconditionally. And I agree. I think that this is probably the #1 way to change yourself, to change your inner beingness, right? Is to love yourself unconditionally. And that doesn't always, it doesn't always feel easy. We have a lot of internal narratives and stories about ourselves. And often those stories were started by someone else when we were very young. But that does not have to be a hindrance to where we are right here and now. So she said, Louise Hayes said, that it builds momentum. Some truthful things about yourself. Doing this will help you kind of set the tone for the day. But it's also, I feel and think that it's one of the most effective ways to change your inner being, the inner man, right? Or my inner lady. And to look at myself and to feel unconditional love for myself. So that means not holding myself in a narrative where I've made mistakes or I've done things that I don't feel proud of or happy about. And it's setting all of that aside to give myself a break, right? From those internal dialogues, those internal conversations that we often are having about our own self without even paying attention to it, because it's just something that we've always done. So when I say, I love you so much, you don't even have to say your name, but you can. I love you, Margot. And I know that today your heart is wide open to the abundance of the universe, to receiving and experiencing love. You are a wonderful spark in this world, and source flows through you. And you live and move in source. Your inner beingness lives and moves in you. And love is what makes it all possible. And my inner being loves you. Sometimes I'll talk to myself as though it's, you know, like another person. But your inner being loves you, Marco. I love you too. See, that's a truth. And it can help if you make a little list of true things. You can get that information from things that Neville Goddard talks about, from things that Edward Art talks about, from things that Joseph Rodriguez, anybody who, you know, is telling you truth and it will resonate with you. You'll know it by how it feels. Abraham Hicks. There's so many good teachers out there, and often I talk about different BW manifesting is another great source of inspiration, and he gives really good information, and you can always tell the people who are giving you good information is because they're using that information themselves and it's working in their own life. That makes them an authority of what they're sharing with you because it's a personal experience. So I think that that's, you know, how you test things out and then find through your own personal experience what's working for you. And that's what I've, you know, been doing, especially this year. And I know Edward Art put out a brand new post on Reddit that I really appreciated, because I was thinking about these things, mulling over a lot of the things that he was talking about, but in my own kind of like way. He really laid it out in a beautiful, clear, understandable way. One of the things that really struck me was when he was talking about, and I don't have this down exact, but the valley of the shadow of death. And I've heard this said too by Neville Goddard, that this world is dead, in that it's already been created, and it's a mirror. It's a mirror world. It mirrors back to us everything from our own mind, right? And in that way, it's kind of like we're in a teaching bubble. We're teaching ourselves to understand the dynamics of giving ourselves what we want. And like what I was saying at the beginning of this is how to give ourselves unconditional love. Because if we're not giving ourselves first and foremost unconditional love, that's going to be reflected back to us by other people in unloving ways. So instead of, and then this is where the second step is. And I got this step by listening to Wayne Dyer, who had put out a collection of wonderful videos that I recommend and that I share from time to time. And the one thing that he said, and he said many, many very poignant, resonant truths, but the one that hit me to the heart is that if you're holding justified resentments, you will suffer. It's an attachment. And I didn't start out in this life holding any resentments, justified or otherwise, towards anyone, including myself. But as I grew and lived and interacted with other people, I picked up a lot of justified resentments towards other people, but also towards myself. Critical resentments, actually, in ways of just being really overly self-critical about things. that I was doing or not doing, and the way that other people would, they would show me conditional love based on how I was acting or behaving. And that's not a bad thing. It's just a thing, right? But when you're little, you don't have a way to really understand how to not take things personally, or how to not absorb other people's opinions or beliefs or things like that, you'll start absorbing a lot of outside influences, and that will shape your thoughts and your feelings about yourself. So the last few years for me, I think all of it's come to a head in that these are the two things: unconditional love for the self and keeping attached to justified resentments towards other, which is ultimately me keeping it towards myself. Those are the two things that I've needed to give my full attention to, because listening to Abraham Hicks and other teachers talking about the law of assumption has done an enormous amount of good for me. It's helped me to feel freer to dive into these two steps, because for me, unconditional self-love it's always been easier for me to love others more or less unconditionally than it has been for me to love myself unconditionally. I have more expectations for myself than I often have for other people. But when I have unmet expectations for other people, that's where the justified resentments can come in to play. Because hurt feelings and all the negative feelings towards anyone else is really a hindrance to me loving myself unconditionally. And if this resonates with you, then this is the information that I'm sharing with you, because I really feel like it will be helpful for you. It's really helped me find within myself a greater awareness, and with that has come a greater feeling of peace and fulfillment, because I'm able to really feel that I'm giving myself what I want, instead of a lot of conflicted feelings and thoughts around anything outside of myself. So there's nothing to change but self, right? And so it makes sense to start with yourself first, to give yourself unconditional love and to practice that at every opportunity, because there's probably going to be a lot of opportunities that come up and make themselves available for you to be like, I'm not loving myself. Why is this happening? And then you can observe it and be like, yes, I can see where I can give myself what I want. And that is loving myself. It is, when you're not loving yourself unconditionally, that is bondage to the inner man, to the inner being. And that is going to be reflected back to you from others outside of yourself. It's the only way that we can see what's actually going on in our inner world is by the outer world reflecting back to us what we're giving to ourselves. And that doesn't always feel good. But the good news is you can change that. I know that it's true because I've been changing it in my life. And so I'm not trying to feed you some, interesting fantasy stories about going into your imagination and giving yourself what you want and feeling, and suddenly your life will be different. Because it's not about material things. The material things are lovely and they come. They're a part of the work that you're doing. When you're giving yourself what you want, those material things come and they're easy. They're far more effortless in revealing themselves in your life than if you're holding yourself in bondage. Good luck trying to get anything stable or consistent in your life. If that has been your experience, these 2 steps will absolutely change your life from being full of fluctuation and conflicted thinking and just a lot of ups and downs in how you feel. It will stabilize your inner balance, and what you're giving to yourself will become very stable and consistent. And so, in my opinion, these 2 steps are absolutely critical. They're fundamental in changing yourself inside and giving yourself what you want. Because if you cannot receive what you want through feeling like you deserve it, or like feeling that you can have that by believing that it's yours to have, then you're in bondage. Your inner being is in bondage from your beliefs, and those beliefs are limited beliefs about yourself and what you can and can't have. And you don't really have to take a huge amount of time to go back deep into your childhood and figure out where it all went wrong. You don't have to do that. You just have to start now, right here, right now, where you are in the present moment, and just dive in to, and I know it sounds so simple, unconditional love. It seems like, I love myself. I love myself plenty, but it's not really, the same. Because if you're not feeling really unconditional love towards yourself, you're going to have a lot of things in your outer world that just don't feel like they're in place. Or you might be feeling like there are constant issues that keep coming up again and again and again. You don't have to fix any of that in the outer world. The best place to start is in here with what you're giving to yourself. So, Louise Hayes, she really had almost everything she talks about. I really resonate with and I agree with it, but she had one thing, in my opinion, wrong, where she said, you can change any thought you're having, and then you'll feel the difference. You'll feel better when you change the thought. I think that is backwards. you have to feel the feeling first before the thought can change. Because the feeling is the most important aspect of changing the inner beingness of yourself, changing yourself for what you want. Because the feeling is what's going to draw thoughts to that. And they will combine. And it's like, that's going to become a belief. That's how your life will begin to change, because you operate from a series of thoughts that you believe in. And there's feeling attached to all those thoughts. And that's what makes them feel so strong and so hard to change. Because I can have really, really great thoughts. But if the feeling attached to those thoughts are contradictory or conflicted, it's a moot point. It's like, in my head, I know what I can do. I could listen to the best law of assumption information all day, and I can, in my mind, believe that's true. But if I don't change the feeling, those thoughts cannot come to me and give me a foundation for my life to transform, right? Because your feelings and your thoughts, they need to be a match, or that's going to cause an imbalance that's going to be reflected back to you from the outer world. So that's how we can fine tune it, is if something's not right. So, and this is what I was saying earlier in one of my live videos. I was really upped up on coffee because I needed to drive for hours. I was so excited. So if anybody caught that, thank you for listening. I was really, oh wow. It was, yeah, I was feeling super hyper and so excited. But anyways, yeah, I actually forgot my point because I was talking about how hyper I was being the other day on my live. But when you start giving to yourself exactly what you're wanting and feeling, that's when it changes. And giving yourself what you want and feeling means you have to allow yourself to receive those new feelings, because those feelings are foundational to the thoughts that are going to join and help create new beliefs for you to operate from. It's a new state. It's a new state of beingness. And the feeling and the thoughts come together. They create a little state. And then everything flows from that state, right? So you can hop around into different states. Not every state is going to support what you want. Some states are going to show you what you don't want. And I am very, very familiar with what I've created in my life with unwanted states. And so when we're talking about there are no justified resentments, this means that no matter who you're interacting with, it could be your partner, it could be a friend, it could be a stranger, it could be your child, it could be a parent. It doesn't matter. If you're holding justified resentments against anyone, it's going to cause you suffering. It's an attachment to a story. And ultimately, the reasons that you have justified giving yourself that story as true, that's going to result in pain and suffering and all the things that stem from fear. Because I ultimately, I think it comes down to feeling like you don't have control. And we don't always feel like we have control from what's coming, what we're experiencing in the outer world. Probably because ever since we were little, we were taught to believe that the outer world is out of our control. And then little by little, we stop using our imagination. We stop allowing ourselves to dream. We see everything that's going on in the outer world through the news outlets and from hearing people that we love and, trust, and intelligent people droning on and on and on about the outer world as though it's something to give your attention to. And it's something to focus on, just the perils and how bad it is. And that is not going to do anything. It's not going to change anything in the outer world. The only change comes from self. The only change that we're going to experience in the outer world is when we give it change to ourself in the inner. And so this has been a really a powerful few days for me. This month of May has felt incredibly wonderful. The energies have just been really lining up, and things are really clicking, and I'm starting to, well, not even starting. It's been a culmination of all the things that I've been thinking and feeling and practicing. And it's now this big realization that, I just put these two things together yesterday with Louise Hayes and Wayne Dyer. And it's been extremely satisfying, because every day I have an opportunity, just in my interactions with my partner, to see what I'm giving to myself. And most of the time, I'm giving myself resistance or problems. I make things problematic because I have carried around countless justified resentments towards my own partner over the years, right? And I think anybody who lives with another person can understand that. But it doesn't have to be something that makes you miserable and cause you pain and suffering. And I did, for quite some time, do that. So it doesn't matter. My partner is just showing me what I'm giving to myself. And that's not something that anybody in the outer world, unless they're into the law of assumption, they're not going to buy that. They're not having it. And that's fine, because I'm not here to proselytize or change anybody's mind. And I've said that from the start. I'm just sharing what works for me. The more that I show up for myself and give myself unconditional love, I'm finding that it's almost impossible to hold justifiable resentments against anyone about anything. And people outside of me are more often reflecting back to me desirable things, wanted interactions, lovely interactions. And yes, it's still very tempting to abandon myself and keep myself in bondage by taking something outside of myself personally, and then to hold a hurt or a resentment over it, right? Or to feel angry or unhappy about a situation, whatever. I'm just saying, these two steps are the two things that for me have been really helpful. And I'm imagining that as I continue doing this every day, it's going to get more and more reflected back to me of what is wanted. So it won't, in the moment of an unwanted interaction or an unwanted observable interaction with someone, or about a situation, the way something is in the outer world, I'm caring less about that. It's, for me, whatever the unwanted interaction or observable what is about this, the outer, the way things that I'm observing are, it's not about that thing, or it's not about that person. It's not even about whatever the miscommunication might be. It's not about any of that. And so I can write down in my notebook what I observed, and then I can just let that out instead of verbally trying to communicate it with the mirror, right? To change the other person, which doesn't really work. In my case, it really doesn't work. I can't reason with other people to make them see my perception of things. Even if I feel like I'm correct, it doesn't, it's like an exercise of unnecessary expenditure of energy. It's kind of exhausting after a while, especially when it's habitual. And I'm not talking about little things like, somebody's doing something and you're just, you say, oh, could you please do this? Like maybe they're going to put something somewhere that you don't want it. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about core things that continually are reflected back to you in your life. So, yeah, unconditional love is the only thing that changes bondage of self. If you don't agree with that, that's fine. But this is what feels true for me and is working. And that gap becomes smaller and smaller as I give my attention to that. So, just to riff a little bit off of what Edward Art, just his most recent post, I feel like I am wed to my inner being, to source. And when I'm keeping my vows of love as unconditional as I am able to meet myself in any moment, that is when I feel the most calm and at peace. And when I trust that my beloved loves me with everything that it is, right? And I can allow myself to accept that and feel that, it's only going to amplify and build momentum if that's what I'm giving to myself. So if you are saying to another person that you love them with your whole heart, but you're not loving yourself with your whole heart, then you're not loving yourself unconditionally. You're not giving yourself the most beautiful gift, and the only gift that there is to give to self is love, and it to be unconditional and to be with everything, every fiber of your being. And when you do that, that builds trust, that builds belief that you can have, do, be, experience anything that you want. And it is that simple. It is that simple because your ability to let go of all the reasons that you are keeping yourself in bondage, you'll suffer. I suffered. And whenever I do forget, I suffer. The good news is I suffer a lot less now. Without a doubt. I suffer a whole lot less than I used to. Just know that every day is a new day to wake up and start fresh. And start with yourself first so that it just builds on that. And everything opens up. I don't carry around a bunch of internal stress and anxiety like I used to. I'm not, I don't feel the need to look outside of myself for relief. I don't feel the need to even communicate to make anyone understand me. If I'm having a misunderstanding with someone, I don't have to do that. I can give myself understanding and clarity. And then I watch as that catches up and is reflected back to me. I don't have to push. I don't have to fix anyone or anything. This world is perfect, just the way it is. There's nothing to fix. And when you live from that truth within yourself, everything in your life will start reflecting that back to you, that there's nothing to fix, that everything is flowing effortlessly, that everything is unfolding in the most perfect way, that you don't have to figure things out because there's no problem. You are now living from soul. Solutions are easy for you. Problems are not easy if that's your constant focus on how to figure a problem out. But in every single problem that is perceived, it already has the solution within it. I know that's true. And the solution is inside of me. So, I just wanted to share this with you, friend, because it feels good to feel like I am feeling really balanced and clear and calm and like everything feels peaceful inside of me. when I am doing my gardening things or anything, my mind is like a still stream. Stillness in that it feels relaxing. It feels lovely to sit next to a lovely little stream that's just, it's just moving in its own direction. And it's not worrying about the destination at the end, wherever the end is of that stream. It's not worrying about it. It's being in the moment and just letting everything flow and be what it is. Because that's the art of beingness. It's just being exactly who you are. And what you are is love and peace and serenity. These are all things that are the truth of you. And when you feel that, your life will be transformed. And nothing will shake you out of that ever again. You will be so stable in the foundation that you have built for yourself by understanding what you are giving to yourself and believing that. And you do that, and the rest of your life is just going to be a series of a beautiful unfolding that you get to enjoy, that you will find is so meaningful to you. No matter what happens, you're going to be okay. And you're going to be better than okay. Because you're going to feel like there's nothing outside of yourself that has control over you. You have the power to give yourself exactly what you want and to feel exactly how you want to feel. I think that's good for today. And thank you for being here and listening and feeling this truth with me, because it's a good feeling. Till we talk again, friend. Much, much love.